The February 11th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Here. Mr. Ansello. Here. Ms. Barnhart. Here. Mr. Broth. Here. Mr. Baines. Here. Ms. Boyce. Here. Mr. Brew. Here. President Carbone.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty. Here. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer. Here. Mr. Felder. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. Ms. Hassman. Mr. Hebert. Here. Mr. Keofet-Lacey. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot is excused. He is here as well? All right. Mr. Mafucci. Here. Mr. Marionetti. Here. Mr. Morelli is excused. Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Turp.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Udelson is excused, so excuse me. Mr. Zale.
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Here.
Please stay seated. I'd like to introduce Dr. Fred Johnson of the First Genesis Baptist Church, who has been invited by Legislator Flagler Mitchell to lead us in a moment of prayer.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we are so grateful for your continued hand upon this legislative body. We pray in the name of Jesus that you would guide and direct the policies, the procedures, and those laws, oh God, that would lead to righteousness and fair treatment of our community members. We come believing, oh God, that as we pray for our president, our governor, Monroe County executive, and this legislative body, oh God, we pray for your power to control us and to direct our thoughts, actions, and deeds. We give you glory, we give you praise, and we give you all the honor. For you, oh God, are worthy. You're the eternal God. There's none who's greater than you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. This is for you.
Oh, pleasure. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the prayer. Please stand as Minority Leader Felder will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Your copy of the Journal of Day 2, January 14th, 2020 is available on your tablet. Without exception, the journal will stand approved as submitted. There's a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those who are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire in the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, I'd request you make it inaudible for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Even though he's absent tonight, legislators, please join me in congratulating Legislator Morelli and his wife Nicole on their birth of their son, Gabriel Joseph Morelli. In absentia, congratulations, Legislator Morelli. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on your tablet as well as online. There are several proclamations scheduled this evening. Mr. Clerk.
Will George Wolf please come forward? Also, President Dr. Joe Carbone, Legislator Matthew Turp, and Legislator Sean Delahanty. Whereas serving one's community is important and admirable, George Wolf's service to Monroe County Library System Board of Trustees is no exception. The library system is well respected and an important source of information and media for all members of our community, whether it's a young child who will one day be a future leader or an adult looking to broaden their knowledge. The library has something for people of all ages. As a trustee for many years in the Monroe County Library System, George was instrumental in keeping our libraries up to date and resourceful. And whereas over the years, George has been a member of the Parrington Historical Society, Fairport Public Library, Monroe County Library System, Rochester Public Library, Friends and Foundation of Rochester Public Library, and Library Trustee Association of New York State. And whereas throughout George's 20 years in the Monroe County Library System Board of Trustees, he was instrumental in many projects. George was a contributor in helping guide the merger of the Rundell Library Foundation and the Friends of the Rochester Public Library. He served on the resulting board of the Friends and Foundation of the Rochester Public Library from its inception. George served as a liaison to the Central Library Reorganization Team, which implemented a 4-part master space plan. This resulted in the creation of a new media center and teen center in the Bausch and Lomb Library Building, a renovated Arts and Literature Division, and refurbished Hacker Hall in the Rundell Building, and will open up a new technology center in the Bausch and Lomb Building in March. And whereas George is well known in the Monroe County Library System, serving as board president from 2016 through 2018, George was seen as institutional and well respected. His knowledge of the Monroe County Library System is unparalleled and will be greatly missed. And whereas Monroe County is proud to have members of our community who are so involved, George Wolf retired from the Monroe County Library System Board of Trustees in December 2019, and we wish him happiness and good luck in his future endeavors. Now therefore we, Dr. Joe Carbone, President, Matthew Terp, Legislator, District 8, and Sean M. Delahanty, Legislator, District 11, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate George Wolf for his years of service on the Monroe County Library System Board of Trustees.
I'm reminded of the phrase post hoc ergo propter hoc. That was somewhat a glorious reading. Thank you very much. Mr. President, honorable members, public libraries serve civil society promiscuously and without stint. Public libraries support and strengthen civil society. Public libraries educate and enrich those whom they touch. Public libraries create good citizens by imparting the facility to discern fact from opinion and instilling the art of critical thinking. Public libraries breach barriers of entry encountered by reasons of economics and self-identity. Serving promiscuously, without stint, public libraries are the lifeblood and the salvation of civil society. To this honorable body, I thank you for the support you have given to the libraries, and together, you and the system can make this county a better place in which to live. Thank you.
Will representatives from the League of Women Voters please come forward? Also, President Dr. Joe Carbone and County Executive Adam Bello. Whereas the right to vote and participate in democracy is a privilege that we have as citizens of the United States. Educating and empowering voters of different races, religions, genders, and backgrounds is critical to ensuring that the voices of all voters are heard. The League of Women Voters has created an exceptional organization that aids in creating diversity, equity, and inclusion by eliminating barriers that previously kept individuals from voting. And whereas the League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 as a mighty political experiment by the foremothers of the suffragist movement. Their goal was to help 20 million women who were granted the right to vote by the 19th Amendment understand and carry out their new responsibility as voters. And whereas, with the success of this effort and the tireless effort over the last 100 years, the League of Women Voters has strengthened and upheld its mission to empower voters and defend democracy. The League of Women Voters is recognized as a trusted, nonpartisan, grassroots organization nationwide. The League is founded on the belief that active and engaged citizens, irrespective of gender, ethnicity, or political affiliation, are the hallmark of democracy. They are true to their value of the belief in the power of women to create a more perfect democracy. And whereas the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metro area composed of volunteers from the greater Rochester community, has dedicated an active nonpartisan presence in our county, carrying out programs and incentives of voter education, registration, turnout, and advocacy. We proudly recognize and congratulate the League of Women Voters on 100 years of empowerment and advocacy. Now therefore we, Adam J. Bello, Monroe County Executive, and Dr. Joe Carbone, President, do hereby proclaim February 14th, 2020 to be League of Women Voters Day in the County of Monroe.
The League of Women Voters of the Rochester metro area is honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of our dedicated volunteers and in recognition of the great achievements of our National League. The League values the strong working relationships we have with the county, including our collaborations with the county library system, the participation of candidates in the Fair Election Practices campaign, and in our Vote 411 voter guide, and we especially value the high level of professionalism and cooperation found at the Monroe County Board of Elections. The League is energized by the recent New York State voting reforms, such as early voting, change of party enrollment deadline, and pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds. As we look forward to ever greater relationships with the county, we continue service to this community and to making democracy work for all.
I just have to say that it's an honor to be in this audience of active citizens, be you elected officials or the people here to participate in this meeting. We invite you all to become part of League of Women Voters while we look at initiatives to make democracy work for all. Thank you very much.
Will Rachel Rowland please come forward? Also, President Dr. Joe Carbone and Majority Leader Steve Brew. Whereas Monroe County relies heavily on local businesses and industries to maintain its strong economy. Dairy products and industry are a large part of upstate New York commerce. Through industries such as this, our economy and families greatly benefit. And whereas maintaining relations between producer and consumer is a staple of a healthy and vibrant business, the Monroe County Dairy Princess program is a prime example of this in action. This year's princess, Rachel Rowland, has dedicated her life to the dairy industry and making it stronger and more resilient. And whereas Rachel Rowland fell in love with the dairy industry upon the purchase of her first calf in 2007, she has become one of 2 New York State Junior Holstein Association Distinguished Junior members, the highest honor to be bestowed upon a junior member within the organization. Rachel is active in the American Milking Shorthorn Society and volunteers through the Wayne County 4-H program. And whereas in taking on the role of Monroe County Dairy Princess, Rachel seeks to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers. This is accompanied with help from the Dairy Princess Corps. Currently, Rachel enjoys showing dairy cattle at local, state, and national competitions. She tends to her herd of 9 animals, which she works with on a daily basis to ensure top performance. Monroe County and its dairy industry are lucky to have such a passionate young leader working to improve our community. Now, therefore, we, Dr. Joe Carbone, President, and Steve Brew, Majority Leader, District 12, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor and congratulate Rachel Rowland on being crowned the 2019-2020 Monroe County Dairy Princess.
Thank you, everyone. It is my honor to accept this proclamation. In May of 2019, I took on the role of being the Monroe County Dairy Princess. The Monroe County Dairy Princess program has not been up and running in the last 5 years, and it has been our pleasure to get it back up and running and really promote the dairy industry and bridge the gap between farmers and consumers. Thank you.
There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mr. Clerk.
If you require assistance, a deputy is available to assist you in approaching the lectern. I'll call 3 people forward at one time. Each speaker will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature, and please conclude your remarks when the timer sounds and exit through the rear of the chambers. We do have 40 speakers registered for tonight's public forum, so if you could please kindly respect the 2-minute limit just to move things along. Our first 3 speakers are Radesh Singh, Cynthia Tolman, and Mary Myers.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Tolman, the CEO of Clinical Associates of the Finger Lakes, a local EI and preschool education agency. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about the ongoing crisis in early intervention and preschool special education services in Monroe County and across the state. I'm asking that both sides of this legislature and the new executive team to work together in a nonpartisan way for the betterment of the children and families in our community. It's budget season in New York and Monroe County. How can you help with the state budget? As our elected legislators, you can write a memorializing memo to the governor asking for support for early intervention and preschool special education. Everyone in this chamber, including those nice people in the back, hopefully are all voters. And your local state representatives were elected to represent you. Call, email your local state assembly member and senator and encourage them to back Assembly Bill A00356 and Senate Bill SO 3338 in this year's state budget. Let them know that these bills should replace the piece of the governor's budget that calls for pay and pursue. Independent and agency providers are already doing plenty of pursuing in order to get reimbursed by insurance companies. This proposal, which could result in providers having to give dollars back to insurance companies, would only worsen an already very dysfunctional process and further delay payment to providers. Assembly Bill A00356, Senate Bill SO 3338 provide for what's known as a covered lives assessment. Simply put, it's a way to have insurance companies pay more than they are now, with no additional cost to counties. Sounds good, right? It also calls for a rate increase for all services and evaluations in early intervention. And even better, well, from my standpoint anyway, it would also require less paperwork and pursuit by providers. Thank you for your attention. Good evening.
Good evening, all. My name is Radesh Singh, and I'm a senior at Brighton High School, and I'm here representing the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. Now, my peers and I have appeared before this body now 10 times for nearly a year, advocating for the creation of a Monroe County Climate Action Plan. And now, we're happy to announce that our legislation has been officially submitted. Now, we humbly appear before this body once again, asking for your support for this piece of legislation. This piece of legislation is a necessary first step for our region to take in order to address the climate crisis. With the creation of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, our legislature and our government can take the necessary step forward in addressing this crisis and plan the steps needed to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and revitalize our local economy. We look forward to working with legislators on both sides of the aisle as we continue to address this crisis and preserve the future for posterity. Thank you.
Mary Myers, and I don't have any great pitch for you today other than it's the beginning of a new year. I now live in the neighborhood, and between my husband and I, we've lived in the city, Greece, Webster, Ogden, Chili, Brockport, Pittsford, and Hilton. So the county is near and dear to us. And as a retired teacher, one of the questions I asked is, am I going to be looking at people or am I going to have my back to them? Because, you know, we teachers, we don't turn our backs to our audience. It's not something that happens in a public situation. But I'm going to challenge you with something that Sean Dunwoody always says. He's somebody we spend time with. And he says, we need to remember that Monroe County is rural, suburban, and city. City, rural, and suburban. And as we sit in this astute, wonderful place, that's something that has to be taken into account with every decision that's made. I spent a couple of days looking at you and who you are and what you represent, looking at minutes, seeing the budget from last year. This is an expensive room we run, isn't it? All right, and that's something to remember. The 29 priorities that came out this morning from the work that Adam had done with his committees are very exciting. They're a real challenge to everyone here, and it's interesting stuff. I'm also going to quote something that Kate Cerulli says, if you know Kate. She says that people start when they really can't get along. They need something like a bike helmet that you can all agree to, that a bike helmet is a safe thing, that when you're kind of spread out all over and you need something to draw you together, is come up with an idea that's good for everybody and then see what can be added, amended, deleted that turns it into something that is good for everybody. And again, Sean Dunwoody, we are rural, we are suburban, we are city. We are city, we are rural, we are suburban. Thank you to all of you for serving. And I called and I spoke to a wonderful person, a gal, who asked all the right questions, answered all the right questions for me when I signed up. And man, if all of you have those soft skills she had, we're in great shape. Have a great evening.
Our next three speakers are Kimberly Dewar, Jenny Lumberg, and Meg Semberbeck.
Hi, my name is Kim Dewar. I'm a special needs mom and early intervention advocate. I'm co-founder of Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. I was voted in as co-chair of the LEICC, the Local Early Intervention Coordinating Council for Monroe, in October, and as of yesterday, I am co-chair of the Public Awareness Committee within the LEICC. I'm also a registered nurse and an occupational therapist. Secret. I also serve on the Kids Can't Wait Leaders Council. So hopefully it's clear to you all that myself and my partners can be a valuable resource to this legislature as we continue to collaborate efforts to improve the early intervention and preschool special ed system. In addition to meeting with several of you over the past couple of years and in recent months, I recently had the honor of meeting with the Deputy Secretary of Education while I was in Albany last week, amongst other assembly members and senators. The refreshing take-home I experienced was that everyone we met in Albany this year already knew what early intervention was, already knew what the problems were, already knew what our asks were, and asked thoughtful questions about solutions, including the Covered Lives proposal. This was a very welcome change from last year. We heard strong bipartisan support for Covered Lives and increased funding, and several assembly members and senators committed to co-signing the Covered Lives bill right in our meetings, including my Assemblyman Mark Johns. So we are feeling the support from all of you. We are feeling the support in Albany, and we thank you all and encourage continued collaboration in these efforts. The momentum is strong, and we are very hopeful. My last thoughts are regarding the memorialized resolutions being written, signed, drafted right now by all of you. We encourage members of this legislature to truly collaborate in this effort and include advocacy for Covered Lives, in addition to the advocacy for the already promised 5% and the additional 10% increase. As your constituents, we feel it would be a stronger message to Albany that the entire legislature, and therefore the entire county, views this as an important problem to address. And I know every member of this legislature is always invited to sign memreses, but I am talking about real, true collaboration in this effort. It would have such a powerful impact. As always, thank you for your time.
Hello, my name's Jenny Lundberg. I'm the president of the Monroe County Farm Bureau. I'll be reading this. I apologize. It's not memorized. They say it isn't a competition, but it is. Land. What will become of cropland, grazing land, and orchards? Will they become solar panels, windmills, houses, or the next commercial conglomerate's venture? Farmers in Monroe County are competing with each other as well as developers for limited land resources. Go big or go home. Production agriculture is heading towards the endangered species list. Farmers are either buying their aging neighbors' farms to go big, selling off their farms to the highest bidder, or they are forced to diversify by turning to agritainment and other forms of non-production agriculture to pay the bills. Niche farms are on the rise. They are small, and though they are inspiring, they will not feed the people of New York. As our elected representatives, I know you are thinking, how can we help? You can help by supporting ag education in your communities through programs offered by Cornell Cooperative Extension, MCC, and Soil and Water Conservation District. You can help by encouraging the towns to understand ag zoning, ag exemptions, and ag district law. You can't control the weather, but you can help to advocate for farms in your district, and you can buy local. Many of you took the time to enjoy a sampling of foods grown in Monroe County at our annual reception this afternoon, and you were able to speak with a number of area farmers who are here because they care about the future of farming in Monroe County. Anyhow, there are a few people who are unable to be here this evening, but still deserve a mention in addition to those you already met. If you are familiar with the town of Rush, you have surely heard of the Chase family. Did you know that the Chase family provides corsages for the reception every year? They are dedicated to protecting the future of farming through their involvement in local politics. They grow cash crops, run a greenhouse, florist shop, and roadside stand. In the words of the great Selden Chase, he is gone but his words live on. Double down. Nobody wants to bite into an imported apple from China, so double down and plow the way to successful ag in Monroe County. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meg Smirbeck, and I'm here as a member of Democrats for Life of America. And it's an organization that seeks to be pro-life for the whole life and enforce the consistent life ethic throughout policy. As a part of the RHA, Public Health Law 4164 was repealed. With this repeal, individuals and other than duly licensed physicians are allowed to perform third trimester abortions in facilities other than hospitals, and abortion providers are allowed to withhold life-saving medical treatment to healthy, viable infants that are born alive during an abortion. According to the Center for Disease Control, between 2003 and 2014, 143 infants were born alive during abortions and allowed to die. The CDC acknowledges that this number is most definitely an underestimation because states are not required to report the number of infants born alive during abortions, and most generally do not. However, many die. How they die and how long it takes them to die is unknown. What we do know is that they are born alive and left there to die. 29 out of 50 states offer protections for these infants. New York is not one of them. Democrats are supposed to be the party of inclusion, of expanded health care, the party that works for living wages and for ways to control violence in our neighborhoods and in our world. Leaving a human being to die alone when medical treatment is just a decision away is not a value of the party I signed on with, and I'm not alone. 29% of Democrats self-identify as pro-life, and at the last election will tell you the party is ignoring us at their own peril. Unfettered abortion has caused millions of human beings to die and is costing Democrats elections at a key time in history. Bring inclusion, compassion, and common sense back to the Democratic Party by repealing the Reproductive Health Act.
Our next three speakers are Lindsay Cody, Rosalind Walker, and Janet Rosenberg.
Hi, my name is Janet Rosenberg, and I'm a physical therapist working in early intervention. I was also in Albany last week, and as Kim Dorr stated, everyone we met knew of our concerns with EI, and I just want to thank everybody here for helping to be our voice in Albany. Tonight, though, I'm going to talk about the concept of covered lives, and it's complex. To break things down in EI is financed through commercial insurance, Medicaid, and escrow from state and county funds in that order. State estimates are that commercial insurances deny more than 70% of the claims sent to them and pay only between 2 to 3% of the total cost of EI. Insurance claims only get sent to New York State regulated plans. Insurance companies may deny claims for not being medically necessary, because they exclude a certain diagnosis or treatment code in their coverage, or a myriad of other reasons. Alternatively, they might approve a claim. However, the plan is a high deductible plan requiring the family to pay the full amount, or a copay plan requiring the family to pay a copay. Early intervention cannot require families to pay for the service, so these amounts then get sent to escrow. In this instance, even though insurance approved the service, they are not paying for it. As you can see, this is incredibly complex and an extremely burdensome process that is on the shoulders of EI agencies and independent providers to muddle through in attempts to recoup monies. Currently, there are bills at the Assembly and the state proposing the creation of a covered lives assessment, which in the simplest of terms would require insurance companies to pay a certain amount of money into a dedicated EI escrow fund, and would then eliminate the individual claiming process currently in place. And this would not place additional financial burden on the Medicaid system in New York. I urge everyone in the room to sign on to the memorializing resolution supporting these bills. There are approximately 131 children who have been waiting for more than 30 days for their EI services to begin in Monroe County. Thank you for working together on this very important issue for the most fragile in our community.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about the modified jail phone contract. Back in October, I was here and the legislature voted on a new jail phone contract. The previous contract expired after 5 years, and we were looking at trying to find something to lower the cost. And something was found, but although it's better, it's not the best that we can do. So the original contract, if someone called you an inmate called you, your family, you would have to pay $1.85 for the first minute and 10 cents thereafter. So that was with the previous company. We're now looking at a company called Securus in the new contract that's coming up. And that company, they won't charge $1.85 up front, but it's still 10 cents per minute. However, the cost of the system is only 3 cents per minute. So basically, it's still about triple the cost. The price to families and, really some of the more vulnerable families in our community is 3 times what it really needs to be. And so the question is, do we believe in profiting off of incarceration? Do you believe in profiting off of crime? And if you really don't believe that, and that's a principle of yours, we should not be voting for this contract as it currently stands. If it's a price where it covers the cost 4 or 5 cents per minute to, round up to a nice, easy number, for calculation, that covers the cost. But we're already sitting on a $3.4 million slush fund from the previous vendor that we use. At this current rate, they're still making $500,000 off of the backs of families that are in crisis from a phone call, which is necessary and important for the families, the children to talk to, their family members who may be incarcerated, help, reduce recidivism, just from encouraging those inmates that are there to, do better. So I really would ask you legislators, as well as our sheriff, if we can come back to a lower price, 4 or 5 cents to cover the cost, but not gouging at 10 cents when it's unnecessary. And we already have a lot of money there that's unaccounted for, that we don't know how it's being used, and basically trying to pay our bills on the backs of these families. So I encourage you to not vote for it as it currently stands. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Cody, and I'm a senior at HFL High School. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders about the creation of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Board. We've been advocating for this for the past 10 months, and we're very hopeful that in the coming month this motion will pass. Speaking as a youth, thoughts of my future are a constant pressure on me and my peers. Establishing a climate action plan would be the first step that we can take to ensure a future of safety and security. But beyond its implementation, we must ensure that we keep the pressure on. Simply saying we will act is not acting. The climate crisis will get no better if we don't take definitive actions to improve our worsening conditions. So I implore you, don't just establish this committee. Continue pursuing progressive action. Continue paving the way for my generation to find success. Your children and their children are depending on you. Be the voice for the future we need. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Valerie Antonone, Joanna Frank, and Lexi Popovich.
Good evening to our new county executive, our legislatures, and guests. You know, our country is fiercely divided. We have another civil war on our hands. And I think Lincoln's Gettysburg Address has some relevance here even today. 47 years ago, and that's 27, our Supreme Court decided in Roe v. Wade that not all were conceived in liberty, not all dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal. Now, if we fast forward to last year, when our state passed the Reproductive Health Act, RHA, this act actually expanded abortion services up to birth and then celebrated it by lighting up the World Trade Center in pink. And it was this legislation that has brought our group here over the last 9 months to advocate for the unborn and to be a voice for the voiceless. As parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, we know how much love the children bring to us and how much love we have for them. And in researching the latest abortion statistics, and in a room this size, over 20 of you would not be here today. Let us remember that we all have a right to be here, and I'm glad you're here. The more, the merrier. We exhort you to sign the resolution, and again applying some of Lincoln's own words, to resolve that these little ones shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people and by the people and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Let's end this war against the unborn by signing the resolution and standing for life. Then we can truly celebrate in cities across this land in pink and blue. I'll leave you with the words of Jeremiah the prophet. And I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Thank you.
I am Joanna Frank. I am an 8th grader at 12 Corners Middle School in Brighton. I'm here with the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. We are here to talk about adopting a climate action plan. I'm just a mere 13 years old, and yet I am forced to take my home and my future into my hands now. I am forced to put out fires with hugs and chants, to keep people from smashing each other with coal, to keep people from drowning in oil, to keep my own planet Earth alive, to fight for the rights that the rich, white, landowning men works oh so hard to protect. What rights? To be safe from natural disasters getting worse and worse due to climate crisis? To be safe from the flooding from the melting icebergs? To be safe? What does that mean? To be safe? To be safe from the flooding of the melting icebergs, to be safe from the fires that rage due to the dry droughts taken by immense heat from rising temperatures. They did not see this coming 200 years ago. We have the ability to see this through science. Why are we turning a blind eye? If we are at the medical height of the century, why can't we also have the knowledge of common sense? I'm 13 years old and I have more common sense than a lot of people. I am young, I am bold, I am brave. No matter how beaten down I am, I will fight, I will stand. Me and my brothers and sisters on the other side of the world. We will not fall until this world is safe from people who don't care for our home, our Mother Earth, who disrespect it and throw it in the dirt. Well, I get to sit and watch in horror as my home, where my life, my friends, my family, the human species was born. Is this what I want? Is this what you want? Do I have to act like a parent who tries to keep their kid away from drugs? Our world is special. It is amazing. Compared to time, it is an infant, yet it is powerful. We are parasites. If the world does not want us, it will destroy us. It has done that before. Ice ages, volcanoes. Who's the trigger? Me? What did I do? Why do I love? Why do I have feelings? Why do I hope, dream? Why do I wish to fly? Give me a reason. You are my politicians. You must be my voice. Please adopt a climate action plan. In your climate action plan, please include electrified cars and transportation, electrified heating and buildings, improved public transportation, renewable energy, and county-wide composting. Help me have a future. I thank you for your time.
I am Lexi Popovich, and I am from the American Lung Association. So currently in New York State, about 4% of adults are current e-cigarette users, while almost 40% of high school seniors are using e-cigarettes. Youth e-cigarette users are almost 4 times as likely to start using conventional cigarettes than their peers who don't use. The display of dual usage between conventional and electronic cigarettes is recognizable, as the New York State high school conventional cigarette rate has now increased for the first time in 20 years. The perpetuation of nicotine addiction within our middle and high schools has become a critical issue that all districts are facing right now. As public servants, I can understand those concerns on how to manage policy around health, taxpayer dollars, and the sustainability of small business. On one side of my family, I lost 2 grandparents to smoking-related disease. But on the other side, I had 2 grandparents who owned a local small business for over 50 years. Tobacco control policies and small business success can go hand in hand. The overall health of ourselves and our families is at the forefront of our personal concerns, but we often lose sight of this due to our focus on business sustainability and community growth. As residents of New York, each of our households annually pay in tax burdens $1,300 for smoking cause expenditures. The statewide impact of Tobacco 21, the sales tax on e-liquid, and the licensing of all e-cigarette retailers have helped curb youth access to these products. Our state senators and assembly members who we met with last week are focused on policies that include things like pharmacy bans and flavor bans, while local municipalities are encouraged to seek other small-scale policies to couple this. With this said, on a county-wide level, there are benefits to integrating tobacco and vape retailer licensing and zoning policies that ultimately keep retailers away from schools and youth center locations without hurting small business. Capping the number of tobacco and vape retailers in a designated area or limiting the locations where these retailers can operate, such as near schools, have positive outcomes with little long-term impacts on business. The town of Brighton has zoned all vape retailers to industrial areas of the town, while the town of Perrington has zoned all vape and tobacco specialty shops to adult use areas. Many municipalities in Monroe County are placing this public health at the forefront of their policies, but also keeping in mind that local tobacco and vape retailers can still operate and just be limited to where they exist. We hope the county takes consideration of these positive impacts this can have on our community, especially in regard to our young and adolescent populations. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Anna Sarasoletti, Michelle Sterlis-Accorsi, and Rob Levine.
Good evening. My name is Anna Sarasoletti. I am a sophomore at Penfield High School and a member of the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. You've seen stories in the news about the effects of the climate crisis in so many parts of the world over the past year. Just the other day, the highest temperature ever reached in Antarctica was ever recorded. It reached almost 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a balmy spring day for us here in Rochester. The Rochester community is no exception to the effects of the climate crisis. Rochester will experience differing rainfall and snowfall patterns as a result of climate change. Lake Ontario is predicted to have increased algal blooms, which results in degraded water quality and harmed fish. Your understanding of these predictions and facts is crucial. Even more important is your understanding for the immense support of climate legislation in this community. Last December, we had a group of about 150 students and community members gathering in the cold and snow to show the support for local and federal action on climate change. Back in September, we had a massive amount of students and community members to take to the streets and stop outside of this building to ask for your action. It is difficult for me to find the right way to explain to you the panic that one feels when they worry their future will be taken away. I can only hope that when your grandchildren ask you what you did when you were called on to vote on a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, that you don't avoid their question or try to justify yourself. I hope that you can confidently look your grandchildren in their beautiful eyes and say, yes, I voted for it and I did it for you. While it is your duty to the future generations and current community of Monroe County to vote in favor of the committee, the county can also only benefit from the creation of this committee. It would cost the county nothing and would enrich the sustainability of the county immensely. I urge you to listen to the youth and the community and to vote in favor of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee when the time comes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Sterlis-Accorsi. I'm the Executive Director of Feminists Choosing Life of New York. On January 22nd, I'm sure all of you are well familiar, 2019, Democratic legislators passed the Reproductive Health Act, which allows abortion of viable fetuses in the third trimester of pregnancy through a broad, essentially undefined health exception. And I'm sure y'all are aware that viable unborn children are capable of living independently outside the womb. Some health exceptions permitting these late-term abortions include reasons unrelated to a pregnant woman's life or physical health. These reasons include age, financial, or marital status. So upon signing the Reproductive Health Act, Governor Cuomo said, "Today we are taking a giant step forward in the hard-fought battle to ensure a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own personal health, including the ability to access an abortion." But we must ask ourselves, what do women themselves say about abortion access, and what do they say about late-term abortion? According to a recent Gallup poll, only 35% of women believe that abortion should be legal under any or most circumstances during the later part of the second and third trimester. Governor Cuomo and Democratic legislators were out of touch with real women when they passed the Reproductive Health Act. Instead of listening to women, they created a false caricature, we believe, of feminism in order to advance their own political agendas. New York State currently has the highest abortion rate of any state in the nation. The last thing we needed was the Reproductive Health Act to allow for late trimester abortions. Feminists Choosing Life of New York is asking Democrats here to bring themselves into alignment with what women really want by resolving to repeal the out-of-step RHA. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Ben Trevasky, Asia Adams, and Carol Cross.
My name is Ben Chernyavsky. I am the president of the Students for Life at Monroe Community College. I'm standing here for the 1/4 of my generation who is not able to stand today because they have died from abortion. 1/4 of my fellow members of Generation Z never had the opportunity to enjoy their full rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness because they were terminated in the womb. 1/4 of the seats in my classes at MCC stand empty for my peers who were taken advantage of at their most vulnerable time in their lives. I work to help women in hard situations, both on my campus and in our city. We have a Pregnant on Campus initiative, which my student group and myself helped to create this semester. We support women and give them resources to succeed in mothers and in their education. When I talk to women experiencing unplanned pregnancies on campus, there are many things that they ask our club to do to help them: childcare, financial assistance, living assistance, or a scholarship. Abortion is never seen as a need, but more of a tool. They see as a means to survive, not to thrive. The Reproductive Health Act takes advantage of women in our community, and especially in college. Instead of helping women to succeed and thrive, we tell them that they need to exercise their right to choose, to be valuable to our society. Instead of telling women that they can get an education at our college and raise their families, we create barriers to pressure them into choosing one over the other. I am the pro-life generation, and I am standing here today to ask you to repeal the Reproductive Health Act so that we can truly empower women and all citizens in our county. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and to the county and the seated members. And Adam, how you doing? Long time no see. I'm here to congratulate you on your win, and I don't ever want to go and campaign again. There are places in Monroe County I didn't even know existed. And during the travels campaigning for Adam, I found a lot of problems and a lot of ignorance at the same time. Most of our voters are not educated enough to understand some of the policies that you guys are creating. So I spend a lot of time explaining some things that I guess change things around. I did more educating than I did campaigning. Right now, one person told me something, I had to come back up here to really see it. This body is the most segregated body I've ever seen in Monroe County in my life. Republicans on one side, Democrats on the other. You guys got to end this. And I'm serious. Because as long as you stay segregated, and the voters back there need to watch this, we're never going to accomplish anything when two parties are bickering against each other that are connected to the same bird. When you guys wake up and just actually get out of these chairs and start shaking each other and do what the lady said, what Abe Lincoln said, this thing is not going to end and you're not going to accomplish anything. I do agree with her on one thing. The city and the county must end. We're family. We all one. What happens in the city eventually will affect the county. And that was the number one thing I heard from a lot of your people. This got to end, because they know sooner or later their taxes are going to have to go up to take care of the city. And if this is what you wish, God be with you, because you're playing with a ticking time bomb. Rochester is in serious trouble. Apparently, some of you guys don't even understand it. Adam took a visit and found it out. So, Mr. E, get your team together, make them break this thing up, and come together as a family, and stop this Democrat-Republican. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be watching you.
Let's see, I hope you can hear me. I'm on my tippy toes. I'm applauding my friend here who just went before me, and I too supported Mr. Bello. And I want to say that I am a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat, and I oppose the RHA. It seems to me that we who are Democrats are the party of inclusion. We tend to be more liberal than our Republican counterparts. So by being liberal, we stretch our hands farther and farther and farther. We're for the poor. We're for women. We're for minorities. We're for the LGBTQ community. We're for the unborn. The unborn needs to be included. If you stop short, you're not liberal and you're not progressive. Many in the community, whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you're a woman or a man, as we heard from another Democrat for Life member, whether you're young or old, it is a political bipartisanship of people who oppose the RHA. The Reproductive Health Act was passed exactly 1 year ago, and it is the most permissive abortion law in the country. Not only in the United States, because the United States has the most permissive abortion laws in the world. There are 6 other countries that have more permissive abortion laws. One is North Korea, another one is China. Not only does this law allow abortions, the willful and indisputable taking of human life throughout all 9 months of pregnancy, even though, according to a March 2019 poll, 62% of all New Yorkers identify as pro-choice. However, 71% of New Yorkers oppose abortion after 20 weeks. This includes 7 out of 10 Democrats, and I'm one of them. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Danielle Salamone, Helen Frank, and Darina Hayes.
Good evening. My name is Helen Frank, and I'm a junior at Brighton High School. I'm here with Brighton High School's Climate Club and Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. For the past 10 months, we as youth have been speaking at public comments urging this legislature to adopt a climate action plan and establish a climate action plan advisory board. To my understanding, this legislature will vote on the establishment of a climate action plan advisory committee in March. This is great news. This is the first step towards instigating effective climate action in Monroe County. The establishment of this committee is so important. According to a report published by the UN, we are pushing up to 1 million species to extinction.
We've experienced the hottest 20 years on record in the last 22. Some estimate that by 2050, there will be more than 1 billion climate refugees in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. In my lifetime, we will see mass migration, increased conflicts over dwindling resources, and widespread food insecurity. Effective climate policy is so important. The world has changed more in the last 30 years than it has in the previous 300. With such an accelerated rate of technological, social, and environmental change, it has become critical now more than ever to look at how our policies affect future generations. If we don't change our current policies, we face the very real and scary possibility that future generations will not have a viable future. If there was ever a time for Monroe County to step forward and be a leader, it is now. Be a leader in climate action. Support a climate action plan for Monroe County. Support a climate action plan advisory committee. We need action on every level of government, and we need it now. Although it has become politicized, climate change is not a partisan issue. It threatens all of us, and it's going to take all of us working together to solve this crisis. Show this generation and generations to come that Monroe County cares about their future. Thank you for your time.
Hello. My name is Danielle Salamone. I am a parent of 3 girls, 2 that have gone through the early intervention and preschool special education system in Monroe County. I'm also one of the co-founders of a local advocacy group, Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. I got involved in advocacy not because I had a whole bunch of extra time with which I didn't know what to do, but because I remember what it's like trying to learn the new language that is early intervention services on my own. I remember what it was like just finding out that my child needed help that I couldn't give, that I was on my own not only to care for this child, but connect with the multiple therapists, learn what they had to teach me, and still try to do all of the normal mom stuff, like preparing meals, doing laundry, and running errands. Now, I had to do all of these things, as well as find time to sing specific songs with their corresponding actions, work on specific exercises and movements, as well as fine motor, pinching, and grasping skills. No one told me these all had to happen every day, but as a mom, you think that if they want my child to do it here and there, if I do it every day, she will get better so much quicker. It's impossible. It's impossible to do everything that you think you need to do plus therapies on your own. It never feels like enough. I'm here to advocate for these families that are in the thick of it right now. They don't have time to come to meetings and speak to you because they're home right now doing therapies. Tonight, I'm here to speak on the Covered Lives Assessment. I know others have gotten up before me, and I'm sure there are more to follow. We, as Monroe County constituents, are looking to you, our representatives, to work together across the aisle in a bipartisan manner to bring our concerns to the state level. We need you to understand that what we need as parents and as Monroe County residents so that you can bring our message to the governor. Early intervention is in crisis. You've heard this before too. I have been up here multiple times in the past sharing my story. We need you to help us carry out our message. In order to save early intervention, we need to both recruit and retain providers. We need speech language providers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, special education teachers, teachers of the visually impaired, and teachers of the deaf that will be able to not only support their families by making a reasonable wage, but that will thrive in the infrastructure that it is the Monroe County Early Intervention System. This is not impossible. We are not asking for the governor to change the state's budget. We are not asking for Monroe County to change its budget. We are asking you to help us to ask the governor to pass a Covered Lives assessment of at least $25 million and include it in the 2020 state budget. This may make it sound like we are asking the state for money, but that's not how this assessment works. We are asking for commercial insurance companies to offset the state and county's funds that are already in place for early intervention services by paying into a fund that early intervention service providers could pull from for non-Medicaid covered children. I am here to advocate for those that can't or don't know how to do it themselves. I'm here to ask you to help me keep early intervention alive. Please come together for the children. These kids that are on a waiting list due to a provider shortage literally cannot tell you what they need. I'm here to be their voice. Please support Covered Lives for EI.
Hello, my name is Dorina Hayes, and I'm in a sense representing myself and all women to repeal RHA. I was raped at 15 and became pregnant, and my mom, who thought I was too young, thought naturally a baby conceived from rape was unwanted, so she took me to have an abortion. When I left the abortion clinic, I was zoned out. I felt like my insides were hollowed out, and when I woke up from a long nap, I was angry. I was angry because I could still remember the guy who came into my home. I was angry because I remember every detail of what he did to me. He held my wrist in one of his hands, and the other hand he tore off my clothes. Why do I still remember that? Why am I not healed from this horrible, traumatic experience? What was that abortion supposed to do? I became depressed because after the abortion, everyone in my family thought getting rid of the baby got rid of all the problems, and I had a second chance. That was wrong. It did nothing but traumatize me again, and I was in pain weeks after the abortion. I became depressed and withdrew from my family. No one checked to see if I was okay, but months went by, and I finally snapped out of it. Depression and anger turned me into another person, and searching for a boyfriend to protect me and to do anything to keep a relationship going, I included sleeping with them. I felt like used goods anyway, so it didn't matter. I went on to have 2 more abortions from boyfriends because as soon as I got pregnant, they wanted nothing to do with me. So now with a new boyfriend, I got pregnant a 4th time. I knew the drill, and I didn't want to lose this guy, so I told him, don't worry, I'll take care of it. He asked me how, and I said, I'll have an abortion. He looked confused. He said, I'm pro-life, I don't believe in abortions, and we can do this. I knew this guy for only 3 months, but he knew that it was not an inconvenience in my womb, but a baby, a child, and half of me and half of him. This man who was pro-life saved my baby. We got married only 5 months after knowing each other. Now we have 7 beautiful kids, and in May we'll be celebrating our 20th year anniversary. So what was the difference between the abortion with the rape and the other 2? Nothing. They all hurt me and depressed me. Like many other women out there, depressed and mentally scarred from abortion, no one is taking care of our needs. I urge you to repeal this, if not for the babies, but for the women who deserve better. I regret all my abortions and miss all my babies. And that baby, who my boyfriend, now husband, saved, is here today. She stands here not as a clump of cells, or an unwanted pregnancy. She stands here as a 19-year-old college kid going to RIT and on the dean's list. I couldn't imagine a day without her. Thank you for your time.
Our next 3 speakers are Liam Smith, Barbara Peo, and Alyssa Cottrell.
Good evening, County Legislators and Executive Bello. My name is Liam Smith, and I am a member of the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. We've been coming to County Legislature meetings for months, demanding that Monroe County implement concrete climate policy, including establishing a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. It was exciting and encouraging to hear today that Democrats and Republicans alike are working together to pass the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee legislation, and I really look forward to seeing that legislation on the table next month. Additionally, I want to emphasize a few things that you all, and hopefully the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, should consider when you develop your Climate Action Plan in the coming months. First, let's put our money where our mouths are and fund climate justice now. While the budget for this year is pretty much set in stone, there are several outside funding opportunities that are still left on the table, including the Climate Smart Communities Program and the Clean Energy Communities Program. These programs provide technical and financial support to local governments interested in creating climate action plans. I encourage the legislature and Executive Bello to look into and join these programs in order to maximize our climate action planning results, because without this funding, it's really difficult to get the job done. Additionally, these programs give out grants to counties that perform greenhouse gas inventories and climate vulnerability studies. These studies will be vital to understanding exactly where we are in terms of climate action planning, what targets we need to set, and how we can best get to where we need to be. For this reason, the county should apply for grant money through these programs so that we can get this climate action plan properly created. Thank you all for your time. I'm confident that we can all work together on the issue of climate change, and I am excited to see where things go in the next couple of months. Let's make this climate action plan a priority, and let's get it done the right way with proper funding, proper attention, and proper energy. Thank you.
Hello, legislators. My name is Alyssa Cottrell. I'm a senior at Webster Thomas High School, and I am here with the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders to speak on the importance of the implementation of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. I am only 17 years old. This means that with any luck, I will be alive well into the 2000s and maybe even 2100. If we continue to emit the amount of carbon we are now, however, this is not a world I want to live in. Sea levels will rise, drowning major cities that we rely on to keep the economy running. Growing seasons will shrink, creating shortages of food, and in the summer, cooling bills will be so high that lower-income individuals won't be able to afford cooling and will suffer the health problems that come along with heat stroke and heat exhaustion. I don't think this is the world that anyone is looking forward to. This isn't an issue we can simply ignore. Changes must be made. The installation of a Monroe County Climate Action Advisory Committee would do just that. This committee would be something the county could consult when considering different policies. They would be a resource for the county in order to make the most economically sound and environmentally responsible choice. They would do their research and make sure we get the best options possible. This committee could help Monroe County set a precedent for climate action in smaller governments that would result in other counties doing the same. Not only would this committee be good for the environment, but it would put Monroe County in a positive light on the journey to America and the world reducing its environmental impact. We want to be on the right side of history, and implementing a Monroe County Climate Action Advisory Committee would put us there. On behalf of myself, my generation, and all future generations planning to live on this earth, I urge you to support this piece of legislation so we're not stuck when it's too late. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Brenda Bishoping, Richard Cherkis, and Celia Darling.
Good evening. I regret to say that New York State is now a more dangerous place for women and their unborn babies thanks to the Reproductive Health Act. Proponents of this act will tell you it's all about health care and women's choice, but that is not what I see. Here's what I see. The new law decriminalizes forced abortion. Prior to this law, an assailant who killed an unborn child would have been rightfully charged with murder. Well, no longer. For example, the district attorney in the Bronx was forced to drop criminal charges against a man who violently stabbed a pregnant woman and tragically killed her preborn baby. This specific incident is mentioned in the Putnam County resolution. New York Assemblywoman Nicole Maliotakis commented on this in an article written by Emily Jones on February 11, 2019, only 2 weeks before the law was passed. Quote, "As I said in my floor speech, being assaulted, or in this case murdered, and losing your baby is not a woman's choice. It's been only 2 weeks and we see the first victim of a poorly crafted law," unquote. Then there is the pain and suffering caused to helpless preborn babies by expanding abortion all the way up to birth. Babies in the womb experience pain. This is stated in data from the Charlotte Lozier Institute in an article entitled Fact Sheet, Science of Fetal Pain, which was updated in 2018. It reads in part, "The published scientific literature shows that unborn babies can experience pain at 20 weeks gestational age or earlier." Christina Fadden, chair of New York State Right to Life, also explains, quote, "RHA has expanded abortion on demand in New York past 24 weeks, well past when unborn children feel pain, are viable, and suffer during the course of an abortion up to birth. This is inhumane, unquote. As if that's not enough, as already stated, there is now no legal protection for babies born alive during an abortion attempt, where babies can be left to die and no criminal charges will be filed. That is legal infanticide. The value of human life should not be conditional upon its usefulness to others or to the state. Also, there is now a bill in New York State, Bill S-298-B, which if passed would mandate the controversial HPV shot for children going to school. Better known as Gardasil, this vaccine has an average cost of $250 a pop. What does that have to do with RHA? Well, one of the ingredients for this vaccine is derived from fetal cells, an ingredient Planned Parenthood can more readily obtain thanks to the RHA. The potential for huge profits would certainly seem to be an incentive to want to pass these laws. This extreme expansion of abortion allows the pain and suffering of babies, infanticide, criminals to get away with murder, and promotes the abortion industry to potentially make huge profits on a very controversial vaccine. I do not call that healthcare. I call that immoral and corrupt. Ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, I urge you all to sign the resolution. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Richard Shirkus, and I'm a retired obstetrician gynecologist. I've spoken to you before about the Reproductive Health Act and its blatant disregard for the unborn fetus. I'm going to review a couple of my major concerns. Some of them have already been talked about. One of my concerns is that the Reproductive Health Act allows late second trimester abortions where the fetus is literally dismembered, ripped apart, and crushed so it can be removed from the uterine cavity. The Reproductive Health Act allows non-professional, mid-level providers to perform surgical abortion procedures that carry the risk of infection, bleeding, perforation, puncture of the uterus, possible need for a hysterectomy. And these mid-level providers don't have the background or training to deal with those complications. The Reproductive Health Act allows for a termination or abortion at any point in a pregnancy to protect a woman's health. What a vague and nebulous term when you're deciding to take the life of a viable, healthy pregnancy. And finally, the Reproductive Health Act decriminalizes abortion. And again, that means if a pregnant woman is assaulted and that assault results in the death of her baby, that is not murder, because the Reproductive Health Act does not consider the fetus an entity, and it's denied any rights, privileges, or jurisdiction. So everybody here in the legislature has an opportunity tonight to speak out for the unborn fetus and sign off on the resolution to repeal the Reproductive Health Act. Send a clear message to Cuomo and Albany that the Reproductive Health Act is immorally and ethically wrong. Thank you.
Good evening, Legislature. My name is Celia Darling, and I am a senior at Webster Thomas High School, and here with the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders speaking about the establishment of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. I'm not going to stand up here and lecture you about the horrors of climate change. It's 2020. We all know that 90% of scientists agree that our Earth is warming, it's bad, and we're the cause of it. If you don't believe we should do something about this, it's a little silly and a whole lot destructive for our children's futures. Humans also have the ability to stop this, starting here in Monroe County by voting for the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. More importantly, once this board is established, we need to put our money where our mouth is and fund it, as we are defined by our actions and not our words. It is imperative for my future, your children's futures, and future generations that we don't just establish this board, but carry through with real climate action. So let's remember when voting for this that we aren't Republicans and we aren't Democrats. We are all just humans wanting the best possible future for our children. Unfortunately, if municipalities like this one don't take climate action like this today, those futures will be much less bright. Fortunately, we can protect them by establishing a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. Please vote for our future. Thank you very much.
Our next three speakers are Marla Parsons, Una Gogstetter, and Kate Maloney.
Well, you've all heard so much about this resolution that you have an opportunity to sign this evening, so why don't we read it? Memorializing the New York State Legislature and Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to repeal the Reproductive Health Act, RHA. Honorable legislators, on January 22nd, 2019, the Reproductive Health Act, RHA, was passed by the New York State Legislature and was signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo. New York State law previously allowed abortions after 24 weeks, late-term abortions, only when they were necessary to save the woman's life. Under the RHA, late-term abortions are now permitted anytime throughout the pregnancy when necessary to protect the woman's health. Unfortunately, there is not a clear definition of what constitutes health when determining what is an acceptable reason for a late-term abortion. In some cases, things as simple as stress, discomfort, or inconvenience can be interpreted as health concerns that could be used as a reason to have a late-term abortion. Through the implementation of the RHA, New York Public Health Law 4164 was repealed. This law protected the lives of children born during abortions. Live births sometimes occur as a result of abortion attempts. New York Public Health Law 4164 required that infants born in an abortion attempt receive the full protection of the law and must receive the same immediate medical treatment that any other child born would receive by a physician other than the physician performing the abortion. By repealing this law, infants born during an abortion can legally be allowed to die without any medical attempt to help them. This act makes legal the cruel and inhumane treatment of the unborn and infants born in abortion attempts. The RHA opens the door broadly for potential medical abuse by allowing any healthcare practitioner, not just physicians, to perform an abortion as long as he or she acts in good faith, rather than acting according to an objective medical standard of care. The RHA repealed a section of New York's public health law that required abortions to be performed after 12 weeks of pregnancy to be performed in a hospital setting by a licensed physician. The RHA also removed abortion-related crimes from the penal law, including violent criminal acts that injure or kill preborn children. This means if a pregnant woman is assaulted and killed, the assailant cannot be charged with the death of the unborn child. Even if the woman is not killed, but the attack results in the death of the unborn child, the assailant cannot be charged for its death. Therefore, for the above reasons, we urge you to join us in calling on the New York State Legislature and Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to repeal the Reproductive Health Act. Respectfully submitted, Steve Brew, Monroe County Legislature Majority Leader. You all have seen this by now. Tonight is the night to sign if you want to repeal the Reproductive Health Act and send this to Albany. You've heard from many people, conservative, liberal alike, both sides of the aisle. We all are affected by this. I find it not ironic that we have stood up here for 9 months asking for the repeal of the Reproductive Health Act. How many babies could have been born in this time that have been aborted in the last year because we've been doing this for 9 months? Please sign your name to the resolution this evening to repeal the Reproductive Health Act. Thank you for your time over these 9 months.
Hello.
My name is Kate Maloney, and I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator for Students for Life of America. And I'm here today to represent the thousands of college and high school students who are part of the pro-life generation here in New York State. In my line of work, I educate students about abortion and explain to them the full extent of the Reproductive Health Act. They are shocked to learn that abortion is allowed and available through all 9 months of pregnancy. They are in disbelief when I tell them that a non-physician can administer an abortion. This does not ensure women's safety. By further deregulating the abortion industry in New York State, the legislature has authorized unsafe environments for abortion facilities to operate in and opened the doors to license unqualified individuals to perform abortions. This strips away direct doctor-patient care, and women simply deserve better. Students are astounded when I explain that a child born alive during a botched abortion procedure is no longer required to receive medical aid. A child who should receive medical aid according to New York State, since they are born alive and are thus a legal person. And lastly, they are disgusted by the lack of justice for pregnant women who, if assaulted and lose their unborn child, can no longer bring their perpetrator to justice. The Reproductive Health Act demonstrates that women are expendable to the abortion industry. I implore you, when you go home tonight, put your politics aside. Look at this law in its full context and ask yourself, how does this law take care of women? Most importantly, where is the justice for children, women, and families who will be deceived, profited off of, and taken by choice? Please sign the resolution, and let's tell Albany to repeal the RHA. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Una Gogstetter, and I am a freshman at Brighton High School. I participate in my school's climate club and am involved with Rochester Youth Climate Leaders. I often read the news and have noticed that the destruction caused by climate change has impacted many. People and other animals around the world have experienced displacement, poverty, death, and other painful physical and emotional struggles due to global warming. The wildfires in Australia, hurricanes, melting permafrost in glaciers. According to NASA, at least 97% of actively publishing climate scientists are in consensus. It is extremely likely that the global warming Earth is experiencing is caused by human activity. It is critical that change take place to remedy this growing problem. National legislation is the most important, but local change can really help fuel its enactment. Monroe County political leaders can make a crucial difference by supporting the implementation of a Monroe County Climate Action Advisory Committee. However, many of you have not chosen to make this difference. Global destruction is staring at you in the face, and it will only get worse for you and future generations if you do not take action. The science clearly indicates it. We have little time, but we have hope, and you have power. The power to change the future. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
Our next three speakers are Robin Whittington, Hashid Assad, and Gary Stout.
Good evening. So here we are again, 9 months after beginning my stand against RHA. Over that time, I've had the opportunity to listen to many members of our community asking you, our legislators, for help. From early intervention, climate change, support for our retired teachers, police officers, farmers, and even help for our homeless and those battling addiction and/or mental illness in our community. If there's one common thread which binds us all, it is we're simply asking for an opportunity for a better tomorrow for ourselves, our loved ones, future generations, and a chance to make our community better. This is our home, our community, and we care about it. Tonight, legislators, you will have an opportunity to sign a resolution to repeal the Reproductive Health Act and send a strong message back to Albany. This resolution doesn't ask for the abolishment of all abortion. Instead, it's a compromise to stop late-term abortions for these reasons. One, the protection for the lives of children born during abortions. New York Public Health Law 4164 had a protection for this, but it was repealed. Currently under RHA, the law allows for the legal and inhumane treatment of the unborn and infants born in abortion attempts. Two, close the door on medical abuse. The RHA repealed a section of New York Public Health Law that required abortions after 12 weeks of pregnancy to be performed in a hospital setting by a licensed physician. Under RHA, any healthcare practitioner, not just physicians, can have the ability to perform an abortion as he or she acts in good faith rather than acting in accordance to an objective medical standard. With the recently proposed New York State Assembly Bill 8743, public colleges in New York State will be forced to provide free abortion drugs to students on campus. Under RHA, those facilities will be unequipped to provide medical equipment and trained staff to address emergency medical issues and provide life-saving treatments. Three, the need for the reinstatement of abortion-related crimes to the penal law. The RHA removed abortion-related crimes from the penal law, including violent criminal acts that injure or kill preborn children. This means even when the mother survives but the infant dies, the assailant cannot be charged for the infant's death. This is unpunished murder and potentially can open the door for more violent acts upon women. At 20 weeks, it's not just a clump of cells. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists reported that 23% of abortion providers offer abortions at 20 weeks of gestation and later, most often using a method called dilation and evacuation, or commonly D&E. Think about this for a second. How powerful, then, was it to see President Trump's State of the Union address in which Ellie Schneider, a baby born at just 21 weeks and 6 days, weighing less than a pound, surviving. Today, that remarkable little girl is a strong, healthy 2-year-old. She is a reminder that every child is a miracle of life and deserves a chance. Like those of us standing in this courtroom today, she's a fighter. We stand here before you to give a voice to those who can't speak for
Please
themselves.
summarize.
I implore you tonight to have an opportunity to stand and fight for the voiceless. All it requires is a signature. Please be an advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves by signing the Repeal the Reproductive Health Act. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. My name is Harshita Sood, and I'm here on behalf of the Rochester Institute of Technology and the Office of the President at RIT to share that RIT enthusiastically supports the proposal to establish a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee for Monroe County. RIT developed its own Climate Action Plan back in 2011, and we have a target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2030 and going fossil fuel free by 2045. We are on track to reduce our carbon emissions, and in fact, over the last 10 years, the RIT campus has grown by almost 1 million gross square feet, so a 16% increase in our size. And at the same time, our total energy use has dropped by almost 16%. So our Carbon Action Plan not only focuses on mitigation or carbon emission reduction, but also on adaptation, and specifically a focus on developing a more climate-resilient campus. We've established baselines and looked at our energy consumption, evaluated vulnerabilities in our infrastructure, and also created a roadmap of strategies. And all of this has been done with cost-benefit analyses in mind. Today, our Climate Action Plan is one of the main guiding documents for our campus's new master plan. So why do we do this? To share just one example of a climate-related threat that is threatening our geography, precipitation. This decade, we're seeing about a 5% increase in precipitation compared to historic baselines, and by 2050, that is projected to rise to almost 10%. And this rainfall will come in the form of extreme weather events, storms, and the flood maps and current code requirements are not based on the future or even the present. They're based on past baseline trends. And so having a better understanding of these changes will help us address vulnerabilities and build a more resilient infrastructure. So where should we be putting new buildings, generators, servers, and what size our culverts should even be under roadways. You've heard from a lot of young people today, and the World Economic Forum survey of people between ages of 18 and 35 shows that climate change is the #1 threat that we are collectively concerned about. So if we as a community want to appeal to a younger demographic, whether it's having them go to RIT or choosing to stay after graduation like I did, or even relocating to Monroe County, it's important that we address the concerns of this group and something that will affect us all. So in conclusion, RIT fully supports the establishment of Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, and we look forward to potentially collaborating with the county on this effort. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Gary Stout. I'm here with Gun Owners of America, New York State, and we're here to introduce the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. After listening to people speak tonight, it's apparent that we're not the only victims of some really poor legislation coming out of Albany. It started with the SAFE Act recently. It started in 1911, really, with the Sullivan Act. But they have clearly infringed the right of the people to keep and bear arms. If you read the Constitution, you have a dictionary, it's pretty easy to figure out what they mean. Due to the recent legislation in Virginia, which was modeled after our SAFE Act, a movement has been born. It was started by, or spearheaded, I should say, in Monroe County by Gun Owners of America. We consulted with lawyers from the national organization, and they put together this ordinance that says basically that you will honor your oath of office, which says you swear to uphold the Constitution. And that means all of it, not an a la carte menu where you pick and choose what you want to pay attention to. So we will be presenting, I passed out some information beforehand, so you had some background information, and we will be in contact in the near future about getting this through, because 91 counties in Virginia have passed them. Another 20 or 30 local municipalities have passed them based on this form. The lawyers are telling us that it's all constitutional. You don't have to uphold an unconstitutional law. And as a citizen of this county and this state, I expect to have our rights returned to us by having our support with our local sheriffs and district attorney and the legislative body. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Hayden Lenhart, Bridget Hurley, and Leah Worley.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hayden Lenhard. I am 18 years old and a senior at Webster Thomas High School. I'm here speaking with the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders about the creation of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. The last time I was up here, I quoted Dwight D. Eisenhower, who, even way back then, knew that the environment and its preservation would be vital to the very survival of the human race. Dwight D. Eisenhower also said in the same farewell address that, quote, "As we peer into society's future, we, you and I, and our government, must avoid the impulse to live only for today, plundering for our own ease and convenience the precious resources of tomorrow and future generations." End quote. 59 years later, his words still hold up. It's time for Monroe County to start pulling its own weight and act as a leader for climate policy in the state. We can and will accomplish this by passing the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee and providing it with the funds and support it needs to function properly. Thank you and have a nice night.
Hello. I bring news of the state budget to those of you who haven't had time to take a look at it, particularly as it relates to children. So it's going to be quick because unfortunately there's not a lot to report. I'll tell you where the governor, and of course I'm talking about the governor's executive budget, where he proposed no new funding was in lead poisoning prevention, after-school programs, nurse-family partnership, and childcare, despite the fact that the childcare availability task force that he convened has been meeting for 3 years and sent him some recommendations. He did not propose any new funding for childcare. There is some funding for implementation of the Family First Prevention Act and Raise the Age, which we can talk about maybe at another meeting. But anyway, so we have lots of work to do to get things into the House and Assembly budgets and into the final budget. And I look forward to working with some of you on that. There was a proposal in the executive budget relating to early intervention that you might have seen called Pay and Pursue. On the face of it, it looks like a good idea, and I'm not even sure that maybe it wasn't intended to be a good thing, that insurance companies would be required to pay early intervention claims and then pursue reimbursement. But in the long run, the way it is structured, it actually is probably going to create more paperwork and potentially even less, fewer payments for providers. So just a warning about that. Looks good, and maybe in the details is not really so great. Finally, I hate to say this, but I'm just going to talk about covered lives a little bit. I know you all know about it. There's, language and resolutions going around. I just want to say a couple things. One, make sure you're looking at the right bill, and I'm going to give you the bill numbers right now if you want to jot them down. So the Senate is 3338, and the Assembly bill is 00356. Great that there's both Senate and Assembly bills. And it's all been explained well. I'll just add 2 facts that I feel like make it a compelling proposal. One is that 42% of children in New York State who receive early intervention are covered by health insurance, commercial health insurance that covers early intervention. Early intervention pays 2% of the total payments for early intervention. So they're clearly not paying their fair share. Commercial insurance companies pay $12.5 million into early intervention out of a total $80 million that is claimed for early intervention. One of the providers' favorite things about covered lives is that they would no longer have to submit claims. So it would save a lot of money and potentially bring more providers or retain more providers in the system. And let's all remember that's the point. This is about kids getting services, and the reason why they're not getting services on time right now is because there are not enough providers. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leah Worley, and I'm a sophomore at Webster Thomas High School. I'm here speaking with the Rochester Youth Climate Leaders on the need for a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. Counties across the state have adopted climate action plans, and it is crucial that Monroe County does the same. Climate change is affecting the entire world now, and it will only get worse if we don't take immediate action. We, as human beings, are the reason for today's forest fires, excessive coastal and inland flooding, heat waves, and extreme weather conditions that occur all around the world. We cause today's rapid and dramatic climate change. Therefore, it is our responsibility to form a plan and act on it in order to counteract what we have done. A Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee would be a perfect start for Monroe County to move in the right direction. By establishing the committee, Monroe County would be able to come up with an environmentally and economically beneficial plan to combat climate change. We cannot wait any longer to do what we must in order to prevent any further damage that climate change will cause. It's horrifying to think that future generations may not have a safe, habitable planet to live on because their predecessors did not do anything about it. So to ignore climate change would be unbelievably selfish. I am sure that we, as citizens of Monroe County, want to be on the right side of history and take action. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Marie Hayes, Nicholas Hamby, and Jamie Edwards.
Hi, my name is Marie Hayes.
and as you heard earlier from my mother, I have survived an abortion. I am 19 years old and a student at RIT to become an interpreter and hopefully serve in the Monroe County Courthouse. I love my life. I love my mom. I love my dad who saved my life. What I don't love is the lie that abortion is selling. The lie that abortion is needed. The lie that told my mom and my grandmother that abortion is an easy fix and a form of birth control. I don't love that abortion is telling college kids like me that having sex has no consequences, because facilities like Planned Parenthood would gladly give me free birth control. Because when that fails, they will be happy to give kids like me an abortion, as many as I want, because they know that we would pay for it. I don't love that the world thinks teens, minorities like myself, are part of this overly sexed up world, and we need abortions. I don't love that I have 3 siblings who were aborted. The truth is, I'm saving myself for marriage, because I can do that. I was taught that from my mom, who had the 3 abortions. I was taught to respect myself and my body. That is what the world needs. Parents who teach morals, not abortion facilities. I urge you to repeal the RHA mandate, because females, teens, and women deserve better. This mandate is going the wrong way. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. I've held all 6 of them in my arms. All babies want to be loved and kept warm. I can't imagine a newborn that survived an abortion being left to die on a table. My generation wants better. The 60s and 70s had it wrong. The sexual revolution was wrong. Roe versus Wade was wrong. We want morals back. We want strong families back. We want security and commitment. I'm sure you all know teenagers out there are disrespectful. I can tell you, we are not all like that. They don't represent me or my friends who look up to you adults in authority. You are leading us by your example. Please repeal the RHSA mandate and bring back morals. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Hamby, and I'm a senior at Webster Thomas High School. I'm here in support of a Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. What this committee will do is coordinate and centralize environmental policy and incentives in the county. Our county has demonstrated its leadership in sustainable policy thus far with the creation of 8 LEED certified facilities. As a county, we must invest in our future for the youth of this county. As a resident of Webster, I am aware that my friends, family, and fellow students support green policy on both sides of the aisle. We realize that a warmer earth negatively affects everyone. It is imperative that Monroe County continues to be a leader in green policy to ensure that earth will be a safer place for everyone to call home. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jamie Edwards. I'm a pediatric speech-language pathologist at Step by Step and a clinical educator at Nazareth College in the speech-language clinic. Thank you to the new legislator, the new county executive, for making access to early intervention services a top legislative priority. I also want to thank you for your commitment to the opioid crisis. I'm here to talk about EI, but I do want to briefly talk about the opioid crisis. My cousin's decomposed body was found on September 26, 2017 in a Gates motel. His story is very complex. He was trying to get his bike off of a bus and a truck hit the bus, so he was thrown forward, had permanent eye damage, had a lot of pain meds, and was awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars. For someone who has a history of mental illness, you know what that means. So thank you for your commitment to improving access to treatment, as well as addressing the need for mental health and addiction services. We have the ability to look and see how our society treats its most vulnerable members. How does it treat the poor, the elderly, the children? This includes the babies and children birth through 3 in early intervention. Early intervention is overburdened and underfunded. The waiting list started in fall of 2017. That's when Step by Step first put out our advocacy video. And the change.org petition, which received over 6,400 signatures. I attended my first legislative meeting in November of 2018 and have been to the state twice. Last week, I talked to assembly members and senators. We seem to be gaining bipartisan support. They both shared from both sides that we are gaining some momentum, and many demonstrated commitment to support Assembly Bill 00356 and Senate Bill 03338. There's still 131 children who have not received services in the 30-day period, which is mandated. I'm asking you to help be our voice in Albany. We still have not received that 5% rate, which was included in the 2019-2020 budget. And whether or not you think insurance should be involved, it is in New York State, and right now a high percentage of claims are denied, so covered lives is the best solution. Covered lives assessment on private health insurance companies, as you've heard today, would tax insurance companies and generate a separate outside pool of money. It's a longer-term approach, but one that you should strongly consider. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Our last three speakers are Brittany Jensick, Barbara Peo, and Rob Levine.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Jensick. I've been here before many times. I actually had a whole thing written tonight that I was going to read. Much of it you've already heard tonight. But as I listen to other speakers before me, there's a common theme here that we're all here advocating for some of the most vulnerable members of this community. As I listened to people speak about the climate initiative, I have to wonder if the lawmakers are going to be able to look their grandchildren in the eyes and say that they did absolutely everything that they could to ensure a future with a safe environment for these kids. As I listened to the people speak on the Reproductive Health Act, I happen to be very pro-choice. I'm a mom of 21 children. 14 of my children are adopted and came to me through various traumatic medical and life experiences. So as I listen to you all speak, it makes me wonder what we're going to do in this community and obviously around the country to support these babies after they're born. There is such a need to support pregnant women and to support, it doesn't stop there. When these children are born, we have to figure out how to support them, which then kind of brings me to why I'm usually here, which is early intervention. You've heard about the problems. You've heard them for the last couple of years. You've heard about covered lives tonight. The bottom line is with covered lives, it will increase funding to the early intervention program without increasing the budget. Which we know is a problem right now. So covered lives is really currently the only viable immediate solution to an extremely complex problem. And we need you to understand covered lives. The people that we've spoken to that do understand it now really have been supportive of it. It's receiving support from advocacy groups around the country, around the state rather, from bipartisan state and local legislators, and also the New York State Association of County Health Officials just recently issued a press release supporting it as well. So just as others before me tonight have asked, I'm here tonight asking you all to work together, both sides of the aisle, to support your community, our needs, be our voices, be our children's voices at the state level, and we together can make a difference. Thank you.
This concludes the public forum.
At this time, we will recess the February 11th, 2020 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature and convene the Pure Waters District Administrative Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. Mr. Clerk, please note the attendance and read the first item on the agenda.
PWAB item number 1, referral 20-0030.
Moved by Legislator Nondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. We will now recess the Rochester Pure Waters District and adjourn the Pure Waters Administrative Board. The February 11th, 2020 meeting of the Legislature is reconvened. We will now proceed with the consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 20-0028.LL.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Hebert and Delahanty. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item, please.
Item number 2, referral 20-0028.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Hebert and Delahanty. This is a motion to table. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 3, referral 20-0028.LL.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislators Hebert and Delahanty. This is to set a public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Legislator Brew.
Mr. President, I move to move the remaining item numbers on the agenda with the exception of item numbers 24, 27, and 29.
Is there a second? Seconded by Legislator Felder. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Legislator Barnard?
This goes up to 29? Yes. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item would be item number
24. Item number 24, referral 20-0026.
Legislator Brew.
Mr. President, I rise to state my interest in this. One of the owners of this company is my wife's cousin.
Thank you. Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, is the intent of increasing the number of minutes in this proposal from 60 minutes for the children to be on the bus to 75 minutes set as a potential way to save money?
Money.
Thank you. Through you again, Mr. President, to the administration. Is there any thought been given to the fact that increasing the time and that kids are on the bus in this program to 75 minutes will result in increased one-to-one coverage ratios and things like that? In other words, has anybody looked at the potential overall costs on the system versus just the time on the bus?
Through the chair, the intention behind increasing the time limit was to allow more potential vendors to be able to apply, thereby increasing the potential pool of available service providers to provide better service to the kids.
Through you, Mr. President, a follow-up question on that. I did not hear you address costs. Address the overall costs driven by things like one-on-one coverage for the pre-K kids on the bus, preschool kids on the bus?
Through the chair, to my knowledge, we haven't done that analysis, but I could get back to you if we can have a chance to do that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next item, 27, I believe.
Item number 27, referral 20-0031.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Turp. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Legislator Mitchell.
I just want to explain my vote.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to vote against this because once again, we have adopted a culture that have seen no representation of folks of color in a decision-making manner. And I feel that to be able to give folks a fair trial, we must make sure that in the top level, we have folks that sit at the table and not just sitting at a table as a token, but sitting at a table and able to voice their opinions. Because the only way the people who will be using these services can get a fair trial is if they got people in place that understands where they're coming from and is not afraid to fight against the other side. So I'm going to be voting no on this until we can see a plan that can satisfy me where we are at least making the efforts to get people to the top level, that is people of color.
Thank you, Legislator Mitchell. Legislator Lamar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too echo Mr. Flagler Mitchell's words. When we talk about structural and institutional and individual racism, having offices that aren't reflective of the population that it serves is the best example. Last month, Mr. Funk indicated that he has a staff of 20 people, and not one person of color is on that staff. He also indicated that people of color aren't the applicants who are applying for these positions. And it just makes me wonder, how do you know that? Are you looking for names like Malik, Tamika, or Nasem? This county has done a great job of keeping out already marginalized population by shutting them out of employment opportunities that pay living wages. And when this is orchestrated, we become the contributor of what the liberals call poverty pimping. Well, today, this county no longer gets to throw stones and then hide their hands. We have a new administration that believes in diversity and inclusion and racial equity of all people, regardless of race. I'm hoping in this upcoming season, you will consider my words and attempt to do what's right on behalf of all citizens of Monroe County. And with that being said, I'm also voting no.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brew. Yes. Mr. Felder. Yes. Mr. Alcoffer. Yes. Mr. Ansello. Yes. Ms. Barnhart. No. Mr. Broth. No. Mr. Baines. Yes. Ms. Boyce. Yes. Mr. Delahanty. Yes. Mrs. DeFlorio. Yes. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. No. Ms. Hassman. No. Mr. Hebert. Yes. Mr. Keofit Lassie. No. Ms. Lamar. No. Mr. Lightfoot. No. Mr. Mafucci. Yes. Mr. Marionetti. Yes. Mr. Morelli is excused. Ms. Roman. Yes. Ms. Smith. Ms. Taylor? Yes. Mr. Terp? Yes. Mr. Wilcox? No. Mr. Wilt? Yes. Mr. Udelson is excused. Mr. Zale? Yes. President Carbone?
Yes.
18 to 9, motion to adopt passes.
Next item, 29.
Item number 29, referral 20-0033.
President. Second.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barnard.
Well, I've said at previous meetings that I'm opposed to profiting from inmate phone calls. I do not believe that we should be funding jail operations on the backs of some of our most vulnerable citizens. And I am appreciative that Sheriff Baxter has reduced the cost of these calls,
but the cost is 3 to 4 cents a minute. We're charging 10 cents. We stand to get $500,000 from these phone calls this fiscal year. I'm very grateful that the sheriff quickly provided a list of expenditures over the last 5 years from this inmate phone call fund. Here are some of the expenditures. Vehicle tracking software program, maintenance, equipment, and labor, printers, a fingerprint system, tasers and taser cartridges, office supplies, elevator repairs, petty cash, office furniture, security cameras, evidence collection equipment, roof repairs, landscaping supplies, vehicle parts, dog food, and body-worn cameras. There also have been more than $63,000 in travel expenses from this fund since 2016. More than half of that was just last fiscal year, when the Jail Bureau budget only had $8,000 budgeted for travel in the budget book. I think we should eliminate purchases from this fund that clearly should be funded from the regular budget. This is just a tax on inmates, particularly their families, usually women. If officers need tasers, inmates and their families should not be paying for them. Perhaps this practice demonstrates the county's dire fiscal situation. If we need legislation to change this, we can go that route. That I'm asking the sheriff. I'd like to work with the sheriff, who has shown that he's willing and able to fix bad policies. I'm asking him to make a different policy. Let's not fund these purchases that should be part of the regular budget from this inmate phone call fund. Let's rethink how we are doing this. Our policy should be just and fair, and these expenditures do not meet that standard. So I will be voting no. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Or should we go to roll call vote, I think, yeah.
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Mr. Brough? Yes. Mr. Baines? Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Hassman?
No.
Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. Keofet Lacey? Ms. Lamar? Mr. Lightfoot? Mr. Mr. Mafucci?
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti?
Yes.
Mr. Morelli is excused. Ms. Roman? Ms. Smith? Ms. Taylor? Mr. Turp?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Mr. Wilt?
Yes.
Mr. Udelson is excused. Mr. Zale?
Yes.
President Carbone?
Yes.
24-3, motion to adopt passes.
There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
We stayed adjourned until 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 10th, 2019.